She might have betrayed your confidence, left you in the dark, or abandoned you. You might have spent weeks or months attempting to reassemble yourself and achieve serenity without saying goodbye. The mayhem she abandoned, but then she abruptly shows up again with a message. Why does she decide to come back? Whether it's a phone call or simply an unexpected visit that triggers memories. Is it regret, guilt, or something else after all this time? Most crucially, how do you react in a manner that adheres to the strength you've developed? And in today's video, we're breaking down this confusing circumstance, looking at the psychology of her behavior, and more significantly, how can you approach this situation with clarity, fortitude, and a pinch of timeless Stoic wisdom? First, we must comprehend why she hurt you. Does she hurt you? This question keeps coming up. At your thoughts, resulting in a mix of confusion and pain. Was it her immaturity, a chronic fear of commitment, or even something external? The uncontrollable inquiries that keep coming back to you, as if you could know the solution, are factors. Influence the past in some way, but the truth is that understanding her intentions might not grant you the tranquility you need, and more importantly, it doesn't excuse her. However, it might offer clarity as a first step toward your own growth. Pause to reflect on her actions, but resist the need to let them determine your own worth. Because when someone harms us, it's typically more about their personal issues than who. Although it doesn't make it moral, this explains a basic principle of maybe her stoicism was a sign that she wasn't ready to face her own fears or anxieties. Thus, it's strange that she projected them onto you after abandoning you too. She unexpectedly reappears in your life, and the reason for this is clarity is frequently brought about by time and distance, not only for you, but also for her. May understand the strength, generosity, and stability you gave her, particularly as she confronts the harsh realities of partnerships in which we have no control over the behavior of others, and we only have power over how we react to them. Her decisions were her own, and the way she treated you was never a factor in your value. Her return might not always be rather than a sign of her change. It can be the result of her understanding what she lost. If she has previously harmed you as a Stoic, ask herself if she has changed, or accept her if she is merely seeking comfort in the familiarity you offered. Return only if it aligns with your ideals and personal growth, not just because it meets a need. Remember to maintain your self-respect and not let her behavior or response consume you. Is the foundation of lasting peace. Despite the fact that forgiveness is a noble gesture, it may never be fully understood why she hurt you, and that's okay. Instead, you should focus on the things you can learn from her actions. What did you learn from this experience? By reflecting on these experiences, you not only reclaim your control, but also learn to love boundaries and your own resilience. But also ensure that your story's next chapter is one of courage and insight. When she comes back, she most likely will address the matter with clarity rather than bitterness or excitement. And you've developed the crucial query: is she the number two? Returning her to explain why the response is rarely simple, and is usually not what you'd expect, since it's simple to believe that someone who has harmed you is returning out of love, regret, or a newfound gratitude for you. Supposing she gets in touch with you months after breaking things off and sends a light-hearted text message asking how you've been. Appears innocent, but upon closer inspection, it can indicate that she has recognized your worth. Maybe she's just checking to see if the door is still open after losing you. Her intentions could be entirely self-serving, or they could be sincere. And driven more by her wants than your own, you might realize that it's more about her than you. Maybe she's struggling to cope with her loneliness and is going through a feeling of regret for how things turned out, or just the need to know that you're still accessible as a safeguard against her doubts. Is this someone attempting to alleviate their own pain, Or does it appear Stoicism can work in your favor in this situation because it teaches? When she returns, we should observe the situation without assuming anything. Instead, try to play detective or find hidden meanings in her behavior. Disengage from the need for closure and approach her return with curiosity rather than attachment. Epicurus famously remarked that we suffer not because of the things that happen in our life, but from our assessment of them. If her return isn't motivated by genuine responsibility and a wish to reclaim trust, that it's most likely not about you. And that's okay because you don't have any value. Reliant on her recognition, consider whether she truly understands my value or whether she, since her homecoming is an external event, she is merely attempting to fill a gap in her life. Happens, and you have total control over how you respond to it. It can be tempting to allow feelings take over, and you may feel thrilled, hopeful, or even vindicated, but since you are in charge of maintaining your peace, what do? Instead, observe and consider that you don't need to push her away or hurry to let her in. Stand back and assess her actions in light of what she stated. She is exhibiting maturity, responsibility, and a willingness to heal the damage. You have a choice. Did she cause this, or is it only about her needs and not yours? However, allow it to originate from a position of strength rather than despair, and remember that merely someone doesn't necessarily belong in your life just because they come back. She acts in this way out of love or selfishness. Thus you should adopt a Stoic attitude to remain composed, maintain your tranquility, and never undervalue yourself because someone took. First of all, you took it for granted. Second, your silence had a bigger effect on her more than words could ever express, by declining to plead or emotionally respond to you. Sent a message that transcends all rationalization and debate by standing aside, and by creating space, you gave her the strength and self-control that not many people possess. Couldn't ignore the silence as she began to reflect and come to terms with what the Stoics call a patha, or the ability to be, is what she had let slip through her fingers, untouched by external circumstances. This isn't about being heartless or frigid, but rather about managing your feelings and focusing on your controllable aspects. However, by giving up on her, you showed that your worth is not dependent on her acceptance, and that think of your mental and emotional well-being as non-negotiable. Imagine a man who was devoted to a woman who, perhaps by disregarding or stealing him, wounded him in the end. Initially wanted to respond by phoning her to demand clarification and start a quarrel. Instead, he displays radical stillness when someone is when they are chasing you, their presence is nearly undetectable like white noise, but the quiet is deafening when that presence suddenly disappears, and he didn't respond or reach out, but instead he simply retreated out of self-respect at that moment. Inward, concentrating his efforts on improving his health, achieving his objectives, and discovering tranquility in the meantime, he was becoming stronger rather than acting forceful in his own company. Gradually, she became aware of his absence and the consequences of his quiet. Started to reflect on her choices in order to assess his value and experience the loss of a person who had previously given her support and stability when she eventually returned, not because he begged or coerced her into doing so, but instead she returned not because of his words, but because of his actions, because the void he created was too enormous to ignore. Behaviors, or more precisely, his self-control. So keep in mind that your quiet isn't only the lack of words, it's an affirmation of your value as a person, and that you won't give up your tranquility for someone who doesn't respect you. And it will be because you gave her the gift of space to recognize what she lost, not because you plead, that she will realize what she lost. The silent strength that Stoicism teaches us to develop is the ability for her to come back, and no one. Can you tell me number 4? She's changed a lot since then, but not necessarily in the manner or at the speed we anticipate when she returns following hurting you. It's normal to experience a flurry of feelings, including confusion, hope, and perhaps even a glimmer of rage or bitterness. But before you do anything, stop and give yourself some time to think about why she is coming back now. Is it because she truly feels bad about what she did and has taken action to mature? Or is it just that she's looking for familiarity or comfort during a vulnerable moment? Return poses issues, and it's your duty to consider rather than only respond. Words are simple. Anyone may say, I apologize or I've changed, but genuine progress is rarely expressed. Instead, it is demonstrated by proximity. Paying attention to her behavior rather than just the words she uses to entice you back. Is she ignoring her mistakes, or is she accepting responsibility for the suffering she caused? Wishing that time has forgotten them, but more significantly, does her conduct reflect someone who genuinely appreciates and respects you, or is this a recurring pattern? Let's say she departed because she didn't put you first or disregard your sentiments, but now she's back and says she'll be different. Phrases like, "I've realized what I lost," may seem genuine, but she's actually exhibiting change by paying more attention to you, respecting your limits, or providing you with emotional security. Or is she still using her charm and familiarity with why to avoid a compatibility? Once more, the Stoics give timeless guidance for problems in epicus, such as these. Think about who you would be first, then act as you. You need to consider your preferences for a spouse. Do you desire someone who regularly demonstrates someone who is emotionally, respectfully, and reliably secure? Then examine her actions to determine whether they indicate someone who is still stranded in outdated patterns, or whether it represents someone who isn't if she returns at a certain moment when she is at her most vulnerable, such as during a breakup or personal suffering, because she has improved herself and is prepared to provide something more superior. Or is, for example, if she apologizes, she is trying to find relief from the suffering in her own life, but quickly shifts the topic to her own issues, which may indicate that she is more focused on herself than true progress would entail, not just acknowledging her errors, but also continuously repairing what was damaged, proving by her behavior that she respects your needs and cherishes your well-being. For example, she injured you by being emotionally unresponsive in the past. You will be able to see if she has changed. To determine how she finds time for you and how she communicates meets your emotional needs. But if she goes back to her previous practices of ignoring your boundaries and breaking her word, it shows that her return is driven more by practicality than by genuine personal growth. A Stoic approach is keeping your cool and preventing emotions from affecting you can forgive, but reconciliation and forgiveness are two different things. Reconciliation is about letting go of her for the harm she caused you without requesting that she come back into your life, of the grudges. But trust is also a component that needs to be gained rather than you owe it to her if her presence makes you feel more confused, unstable, or hurt. To yourself, to prioritize your health, as the Stoics often tell us that your first duty is to ensure her peace of mind. Whether she has changed is not the most crucial concern, but rather if her coming back makes you feel more at ease and mature. Seneca wrote, "Keep in mind that you have the freedom to decide, so take your time and observe her actions, and prioritize your peace. Change is uncommon, but when it does happen, it's clear. Until then, maintain your composure like the Stoics would, and let her prove via tenacious efforts that she merits a place in your life." Again, we endure more hardships in our. The fifth is how strongly you respond to someone who has offended you, returns what you imagined. It's easy to become sucked, therefore your first thinking should be about me, rather than why she's back, into the emotional storm, but in reality, your response is far more important than what she did. Perhaps you've been vindicated, or maybe you're still feeling bitter or behaving in a hurtful way, emotionally, such as by yelling at her in an effort to make her feel awful, or even unconditionally welcoming her back, only exposes you to her actions. However, a Stoic man is capable of understanding better, pausing to reflect, breathing, and think things out, take control of the circumstance. And keep in mind that as the Stoic Epicus, a philosopher, famously said that how you react matters more than what happens to you. What counts here, and your strength, is not in her coming back, but rather in your capacity to, instead of getting swept away by emotion, react with restraint and reason. For instance, if she left you when you were at your lowest and then came back, your initial thought may be one of animosity, since she returned now after everything, or maybe there is still a part of you that longs for her and is tempted to put the hurt behind you and jump right back in. Natural responses, but neither would be appropriate for a self-respecting, grounded man. Instead, pause to calmly and clearly consider a return, and consider whether a return is consistent with the principles and limits you have established. It's challenging to determine how this may affect your emotional health, but the important thing is that this isn't. Whether you choose to let her return into your life is entirely up to you. Or not intentionally, for example, by not returning her phone or text. Take a minute to consider the situation and reply when you're ready, not when she is. Don't react hastily. Expect it. By doing so, you're demonstrating to her your respect for yourself. First, a cool, collected reaction demonstrates to her that you're not the same. She just wrote, "I need time to think," to the person she left behind. About this could show maturity and strength by allowing her and you to know that you value your tranquility and will refrain from making quick decisions. This poem expresses a powerful statement. It shows her that you've grown up and are no longer the need for drama or external approval. Type of man who would crumble under her strain or shrink when she returned rejection, your calm or silent response conveys a lot and shows that if you wish to return, your worth is determined by your values rather than her actions. Touch with grace and clarity, set boundaries, and have an honest conversation about them. Your requirements and expectations, but keep in mind that it's your response, not hers, that decides the course of events. A Stoic man behaves purposefully instead of impulsivity, FSE, so let your answer demonstrate the strength you've gained. 6. Whether her reappearance is an opportunity for peacemaking or merely a chapter to conclude with honor. What is her actual goal when someone has wronged you? Returns. It's typically accompanied with a bouquet of promises, words of apology, and change. She might try to say something like, "I've changed," or "I see now what I lost." These remarks could be seductive to fill the hole left by her actions. They arouse intense emotions, bring back memories, and inspire hope that things may return to normal. But in reality, verbs are easy, and everyone can voice their thoughts if you're interested in hearing them. But in reality, transformation requires consistency, time, and work. The question is not what she says, but based on her actions, do you believe she is genuinely attempting to correct what happened incorrectly, or do you intend to carry on as if and think carefully about this, since her apologies will make the hurt she created go away? Reaction will reveal all of her reasons, so let's take a peek at the real world. For instance, she might have terminated things suddenly, leaving you feeling unprepared and questioning your worth in the days or weeks that followed. In the months that followed, you were attempting to rebuild your life and emotional stability when she unexpectedly reached out to you, expressing sorry in her words and reassuring you that she had grown up and acknowledged her errors. Having a variety of emotions is normal, including anger at the harm she inflicted, relief that she values you, and maybe even hope for a fresh start. Yet feelings can cloud judgment even when they are. Time is a sort of river of passing events, according to the famous quote from authentic Marcus Aurelius, and no sooner is one thing come to light before being swept away and replaced by another. As taught by the Stoics us, the need of patience and the need to avoid making snap judgments or decisions based solely on. The Stoics urge us to let time do its course. When she says that fleeting emotions have evolved, let her to demonstrate, since time is the final revealing factor that separates those who act rashly or self-centeredly from those who act with sincere intentions. Your peace of mind is valuable, and protecting it should be your first concern. You observe her conduct not simply both immediately following her return and over a longer time frame. Without downplaying or providing an excuse, does she have the humility to acknowledge the damage she caused? Or does she anticipate that everything will get back to normal without appropriately addressing the suffering she caused? Believed in preserving your inner tranquility, which is what actually important your values and self-esteem. It's vital to think about what her reappearance indicates, whether you are considering letting her leave because you sincerely believe she has changed or because you failed to see what you had, and her actions will demonstrate whether she is sincere about mending the relationship. She respects your boundaries and won't hurry you or force you to make decisions before you're ready. When realizing that it takes time to regain trust, keep in mind that nostalgia can be a powerful power that isn't always based in fact, as Seneca once claimed that we suffer more in our dreams than in real life. So don't allow. Your longing for the past distorts your perception of the present. Instead, consider the time to think about if her return aligns with your principles and sense of value when someone has. It's not about trying. Reimed you is a delicate process that requires humility on her behalf and patience on yours. To swiftly replace what was lost, but instead to progressively build something more robust, founded on respect, and recognizing that her actions should influence your decision, and allowing Stoic ideals to remind you that you are worthy of a stable relationship instead of number 7, uncertainty in a partnership where actions, not just words, speak loudly. Take a moment to consider why you feel drawn to come back. Isn't it the memories of shared laughter? Is your sincere belief that things will improve the reason you want her back? Or is it because you feel like you can't fill the vacuum she left on your own? Do you long for the person she is today, or are you holding on to a notion of who you had she would be? The quiet moments when everything seemed to be in order, and the optimism that things would turn out differently this time, can cling to you like a Marcus. You realize how few things you need to be happy are like a cozy blanket on a cold night. According to Aurelius once, it's common to feel a variety of emotions, including vindication, optimism, and relief, when someone who has hurt you tries to come back after the real test isn't about her, even if it feels good to have someone value you after they've let you go. It all comes down to you and your capacity to judge if her reappearance is a sign of a healthier relationship or a trap. Caused by loneliness, nostalgia, or a dread of beginning anew, consider this. She abandoned you when you were at your lowest. Her words wounded you and her deeds shattered you. Her absence and your confidence made you confront yourself in ways you never believed to be feasible, but now she's at your door stating that she understands your worth and why. Now, perhaps it's as a result of your quiet, your refusal to go after her, and your steadfast dedication to re-establishing your identity. Perhaps she misses the version of she may have changed, or she may have taken you for granted. But the truth is, Epicus, a philosopher, argues that what bothers us is not occurrences, but rather how we understand things. Therefore, her re-emergence is not a given. Her return is only an occurrence, so you are welcome to pick up where you left off. Cannot rule you unless you give it power, regardless of whether she deserves another opportunity or not. A problem. The true inquiry is if you have sufficiently fortified yourself, where you can choose whether to let her return or to move away. Picture yourself in this situation, looking at a place you once called home, but the walls are broken. Would you move back in since the foundation is unsteady and the roof leaks? Do you recall how comfortable it was to live there? Or would you first ensure that it is being strengthened, mended, and made safe once more? And if she has changed, she will show it, rather than simply say it. Let's take a closer look at her time through regular acts that are consistent with the respect and attention you deserve. What her reappearance really signifies is that you need to remove yourself from her. This is when your Stoic practice becomes essential. Remove yourself from the outcome and look at the situation objectively, whether it's her personal loneliness or even her own guilt. Is she returning because she truly wants to build a relationship with you? Better future with you? Or is she merely seeking comfort in the comfort of your familiarity without having to deal with it's common to feel a surge of sadness when someone who has hurt you returns. Of feelings, the ray of hope, the murmur of confirmation, the allure of a fresh start. But remember that it is your responsibility to protect the harmony and fortitude you have so diligently cultivated. If someone has changed for the better, you shouldn't try to save or repair them. Ideally, her words and deeds will align, and if not, you'll muster the courage to, knowing that your value is not based on her acceptance before you, let her go. Give it some thought before deciding to accept her back into my life. Because I think we have a bright future together, or am I letting fear and desire control my choices? Your failure to respond, your refusal to pursue her, and your commitment to self-improvement have both been, don't let your efforts go in vain by acting on fleeting displays of self-respect. Without any drama, feeling in eighth place and drawing the line is not. They are about establishing the tone, not about shoving someone away or taking revenge. When you set limits, it reflects the respect you have for yourself and how you want to be treated. Following an injury, you express either directly or indirectly that you will not no longer put up with rudeness or inconsistency. This clarity can be very potent. Take this into consideration. Left you feeling suddenly unjust or contemptuous, rather than, instead of pursuing her for closure or attempting to establish your value, you decided to go in a new direction and avoided bothering her. With messages or requests, you didn't become overwhelmed by the details of what went wrong. Instead, you concentrated on what you put your efforts on being stronger, more composed, and able to manage yourself. When she realizes that you're not waiting for her approval, that you've become more grounded, that shift is magnetic, created limits around your peace, and accepted your value, which abruptly alters the relationship and makes her stop looking. When she looks at the person she left, she sees someone who has moved past the circumstance and become even more valued due to their capacity to overcome the suffering in this situation where a woman terminates a relationship. Perhaps originally motivated by fear, annoyance, or even selfishness, she expecting me or you to respond with the typical desperation to win her back. However, you respond with grace rather than remaining silent, not out of bitterness, but instead of just waiting, you choose to maintain your tranquility at that period by develop and follow your passions, spend time with positive people, and concentrate on enhancing your, when she looks back on her physical, emotional, and mental well-being, she doesn't see someone who cracked under the pressure of rejection. She observes someone who has stood tall and valued oneself. She frequently returns out of self-control and poise rather than guilt. However, because she is attracted to the strength you have displayed, boundaries are appealing because they are strong. Demonstrate that, even for someone you care about very much, you are unwilling to sacrifice your tranquility or your dignity. This type of emotional control is uncommon and deserves respect. Shows that you have emotional self-control and are not readily influenced by outside events when she observes. Because of this strength, she can feel respected and perhaps curious about what changed. How did you change her heart to become so resilient and calm? It's not because she feels sorry for you or guilty, but she also sees your worth when she returns. The question is not only why, but also how you react. Do you welcome her back into your life on a conditional basis, or do you pause to consider whether she fits the criteria you've set for yourself? So if she's willing, this is where your boundaries are most important. There could be space to rebuild in order to treat you with the decency and integrity you merit. However, if she continues to act in ways that hurt you, setting boundaries will help you leave. Without remorse, when she comes back after harming you, it's about the limits you set, not simply about her. Strength you displayed, and the tranquility you preserved by upholding your values and implementing the discipline that Stoicism teaches you to be a lighthouse of inner strength and self-respect, is the primary factor that causes her or anyone else to pay attention to boundaries. Are not obstacles, rather they serve as a guide to assist you obtain the relationships and respect you truly deserve. Regardless matter whether she remains or leaves, you maintain your composure and let your limits speak for you. Protective factor number 9. Your own development is the best kind of retribution. The best course of action is to focus on your goals for happiness and personal growth. If she left with the impression that you would fail without her, show her that you use that opportunity to strengthen yourself, not for approval or retaliation, but because you have enough self-worth to not let other people's behavior determine your value. About improving yourself as a gift to her, rather than as a performance for her. Imagine that she sees you once more. This isn't a demonstration. Instead, it's about demonstrating to yourself that you are tough and powerful, and capable, whether through shared acquaintances on social media or even in unexpected. She notices a shift in her warmth and confidence, a sense of self-assurance and communication. Something wasn't as obvious before. Maybe you've been concentrating on your mental and emotional health by pursuits that make you happy or setting and accomplishing objectives that are the power of contemplation, which emanates and has a significant effect, as agonizing as her acts might have provided you with a chance to think and establish boundaries. You took charge of your life and chose how you wanted to restore it. Thing you could always keep under control when she came back, whether it was with an explanation, an apology, or just the best way to retaliate, according to Marcus Aurelius, is to be different from him. Cause the harm, the Stoics urge us to transform obstacles, especially unpleasant ones, into possibilities for development. Think about this situation following weeks or months without. She communicates with you and notices that you're improving yourself, whether it's by going to the gym or following a passion. When she messages you, it may be a project or simply spending time with friends and family. Anticipating the person she left behind, the one who may have protested or pleaded or attempted to put things right. She's found someone entirely different, someone calm, self-assured, and, when you're not linked to her approval, you shouldn't react by being angry, resentful, or desperation, but instead with composure and dignity, as you've outgrown her. She doesn't have the same emotional access to you as she formerly did because of your choice to. Being silent while she was away was a boundary that gave you something instead of a punishment. Time to reflect and recuperate, and your life now reflects the outcomes of that choice. She may express regret or request another opportunity, but by then, dynamics power changed, and you're not the one awaiting her approval. You've moved since you've already come to terms with your own value. Remember that this isn't about holding grudges or searching for according to revenge Stoicism. The strength of truth lies in mastering our feelings, ideas, and behaviors, as well as letting go of the things You can't change the past or her motivations for coming back, but you can control who you are when she does, but allow her to go back if she wants to. Fundamentally, your growth speaks for itself. This is about recognizing your worth, is simply a reflection of who you've become and not a victory. She utilized the hurt she created as motivation for strength and wisdom, and she will come to a profound realization when she sees who you have become. Her absence strengthened you rather than broke you, therefore when she comes back, the best answer is to show her how far you've gone. Let's reflect on everything. We've spoken about how it's more than a passing interest or curiosity when someone who has wronged you re-enters your life. Confusion. It's a chance for introspection and personal development that compels you to stop and consider not just their activities, but also your own path. Your tranquility and dignity remain intact. Of retaliation, but rather since your life has developed in a way that no longer requires her presence, you've emerged as one of the most crucial lessons is to be the type of person who thrives no matter what. This circumstance reminds us that our value is independent of other people's. Acknowledgement. It's simple to slip into the trap of believing that their reappearance signifies that they ultimately understood what they had lost. But in reality, your worth has always been, whether they could see it or not. Have you become stronger since they left? Have you established a life that is consistent with your principles? But more importantly, do you actually need this somebody in your life? Or are you clinging to the memory of what they meant to you in the past? What makes you special is how you choose to respond calmly, sensibly, and with dignity. Because development is a foundation and a reminder that you can stand tall no matter who chooses to do so, not just a phase. Whether we stay or go back, the Stoics urge us to concentrate on the things we can control, which is the perfect chance to apply that knowledge, but you have no control on why they're coming back. But you have the power to decide whether or not they can ruin the tranquility you've fought so hard to achieve to develop the lessons you've gained from this encounter. Whether it's the significance of boundaries. Consider the lessons you've learned about resilience, like the importance of emotional control, or the realizing that love without respect is never worth compromising your own health, self-esteem, and the ability to. In those quiet moments, you not only recovered, but also transformed into, when she returns, someone who no longer requires approval from others to feel complete should remember that you can no longer be controlled by your actions. Instead, it's a moment to observe, reflect, and make a calm, careful decision. Choosing how her presence will best support your growth and tranquility, the person you've become, or may it cause you to regress to your old behaviors. This is the most important. The Stoic lesson is that you always have the final say and should make decisions based on a position of strength instead of want, and your greatest allies are your development. Remain calm, maintain your dignity, and allow her to return if she wishes to, but let your behavior to show that you've overcome the desire for her acceptance. You've grown without her, and it's not just for show, it's the foundation of the life you deserve, regardless of your choice. To move on or make atonement, let your choice demonstrate your clarity. Thank you for being here, knowledge and steadfast self-respect, and accompanying me on this reflective journey. If you thought this video was insightful, please leave a comment in which lesson struck a chord with you the most in the comments section. Have you ever been in? If you felt this video was interesting, Let's continue the discussion in a comparable site circumstance. Was beneficial, kindly like it and forward it to someone who could use the information. Message in addition to watching the recommended videos on they are brimming with information that will enable you to better understand solid partnerships, and until the next time, maintain your composure, stay grounded, and never undervalue your inner power.